Rory Gilmore dropped out of Yale because Rory Gilmore was lost and she was stuck. And Rory Gilmore was lost and she was stuck for multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is that Rory Gilmore wasn't living the life that she actually chose. Rory Gilmore was living the life that was chosen for her. And people forget this, and people ignore this because people love Lorelai. And when people love Lorelai, they decide that if they're gonna love somebody, they have to hate the other. So they will love Lorelai, and they will love Emily, and they will love Richard. But because Rory is there, and Rory isn't doing everything perfectly, even though everyone says that Rory is perfect, which is a really big feature of the show, people act like Rory is a villain and a monster and the worst bad guy to ever bad guy in the history of bad, you know? Like, Rory Gilmore is literally treated like Satan. Okay, it's not worth trying to use the remains of this. I'm just gonna empty it out into this later. Rory Gilmore is treated like Satan by people who watch TV shows, who watch Gilmore Girls, and there are so many reasons for that, and a big one is that people just look for a reason to hate a teenage girl more than anything in the history of the world. But the other reason is that people do not understand Rory. Because it's really easy to look at this girl who grew up in poverty, but we don't see the poverty. We see a girl living with a single mom who owns a really big house in a really expensive state, and we assume that Rory has had it easy forever, but she hasn't. We hear Rory's stories about how they couldn't afford things when she was a kid, about how they lived in a shed in the back of an inn, about how her mom would chase down a clown to pay for Rory's icy because her mom couldn't afford to buy her a new one and Rory had dropped the cone. See, my mom put like some pink in there. I'm really hoping that's not a raspberry or something. I'm gonna be really sad if there's a raspberry in this, but it's a rose. It's a rose and it's a pink rose, but I'm concerned. We're hoping for the best. Now, the thing is that Rory Gilmore is treated as perfect because Rory Gilmore is expected to be perfect in the same way that Lorelai Gilmore was expected to be perfect by her parents, but Lorelai Gilmore does it in a very separate way from the way that Rory Gilmore does it, okay? When Rory is expected to be perfect, or Lorelai Gilmore does this to Rory in a very different way than Emily did this to Lorelai, but when she does it in a very different way, she's still doing it in the same exact way. She's still using the same exact steps. She's just using them separately. Because Lorelai treats Rory like her best friend, and a part of that is the parentification concept and the issue with Lorelai just being a child when she had a child and Lorelai being alone in that and wanting a friend, and so she decided that her child would be her friend. So there is that factor there, but it's also the factor of it's really easy if you use mean girl tactics to control your friends, and Lorelai Gilmore is using mean girl tactics on her daughter, and it's missed because Lorelai Gilmore is cool. And she's funny, and she's nice to Rory's singular friend, and sometimes the other friends who aren't really Rory's friends but kind of become Rory's friends but are never really actually Rory's friends except for Paris. Lorelai Gilmore seems really cool and seems really chill and seems like she's up for everything, but Rory Gilmore's every step is monitored and every step is looked at. And something that's frustrating here is I just made a video about this and people just kept going, I don't understand why it's so bad for a parent to know where their kid is at every point in time. I'm not saying it's bad for a parent to know where their kid is. I am saying that if your kid doesn't have an ounce of freedom or an ounce of perceived freedom, there is going to be rebellion. And Rory Gilmore starts rebelling before she even really knows that they're gonna kill me. Come on. Come on. Monster. Monster. Maxie. Oh, you just didn't like being called Monster? I am so sorry. I didn't mean to call you a monster. I'm sorry. Lorelai Gilmore is using mean girl tactics on Rory Gilmore, and the best example that I have is the best example that the entire show has. Which is when Rory Gilmore drops out of Yale, Lorelai stops talking to her daughter. And people refuse to perceive this as the silent treatment. People refuse to perceive this because they like Lorelai Gilmore way too much to perceive Lorelai Gilmore no longer talking to Rory unless Rory does exactly what Lorelai wants her to do as the silent treatment. So Rory gets ignored and people judge Rory because Rory shouldn't be dropping out of Yale because Rory has everything handed to her on a platter. But Rory's not having these things handed to her on a platter. Partially she is, yes, but also she's having the life that was planned for her mother handed to her on a silver platter. Lorelai Gilmore plans out Rory's life from the moment that Rory is born. She's gonna go to Harvard. I think Rory gets to choose if she wants to be a journalist, but besides that, she's gonna go to Harvard. She's gonna go to Chilton. She's gonna have this big career. She's gonna do a lot of things. She's not gonna get pregnant the way Lorelai did because Lorelai ruined her life, even if Lorelai ever says it out loud. But Rory's gonna do all of the things that Lorelai was supposed to do, and it's wrapped in a pretty bow, and it's given to Rory as a gift for Rory, but Rory gets no say in it. Rory's top school is Harvard because Lorelai's top school is Harvard. Lorelai doesn't consider that Rory will need to apply to other schools besides Harvard. Rory has to do it behind Lorelai's back, which would be expensive, which means that she would have had to ask her grandparents. Unless Chilton hands out the waivers that don't make it so that you have to pay for those things, which I got a bunch of those waivers. But do we know if Rory got those waivers? No. So are we going to assume that Emily and Richard paid for all of Rory's applications? Yes, because Emily and Richard get to be the good guys in these situations and know that Rory's gonna have to go to apply to a bunch of different schools. And also because of that, they get to win because they want Rory to go to Yale. Lorelai chooses Harvard because it's her father's enemy school. Now, Rory Gilmore is given all of this on a platter when she's 6. Her life is planned out for her, and while her life is planned out for her, and she has this perceived kind of freedom with the life that's planned out for her, there is no way off the train. So, when Rory Gilmore gets the dream internship at her boyfriend's father's company because they're trying to make up for the fact that they really ruined Lori's dinner with Logan's mother and grandfather and all the rest of his relatives. Rory is excited. Rory is not only excited, she is going with the biggest name in journalism. Once she learns about Mitchum Huntsberger, she's on the Mitchum Huntsberger train. When she goes on the Mitchum Huntsberger train, she learns everything about him. She learns his favorite food, she learns his favorite wine, she learns his favorite papers. She does everything. And Mitchum Huntsberger may have played Donald Trump's wannabe in Scandal, but in this, he is, let's talk about it, more Succession. Okay, he's Logan Roy, but he's also Rachel Maddow in Rory's eyes by this case. If your dream is to be the next Rachel Maddow, if your dream is to be a killer journalist and a killer person on broadcast, and your dream is to be really intelligent and perceived as really intelligent by your mentor, and your mentor is Rachel Maddow, and Rachel Maddow spends weeks teaching you her ways, and then at the end of it, when all she has to do is sign off that you've done the internship, sign off that you have done the internship and say, good job, can't wait to see you in the future, and instead goes, I just don't think that you have what it takes, then you are going to have, after this 19, 20-year train of your life where there has been no way off, a mental breakdown. You are going to have to recollect your thoughts and your ideas and why you even wanted to do them. And that is why Rory drops out of Yale. And also, a lot of people drop out of their school when something happens. But because Rory Gilmore has money, people ignore the fact that Rory Gilmore is also supposed to be just a normal person. Rory Gilmore had to drop out of Yale because she was having a hard time. She was having a hard time keeping up. She was having a hard time figuring out if this was what she wanted to do, because this is what she thought she wanted to do for her entire life. But then she got told by the biggest person in the name of what she wanted to do that she couldn't do it. And Rory's not Taylor Swift. Rory doesn't take criticism and go, I'm gonna prove you wrong. Taylor Swift is weird for that. We all agree that Taylor Swift is iconic for it, but also a little weird for it, because if people tried to tell us that, there's a chance that we might fight against them, but there's also a chance that it might break us and send us into a little hole. Rory Gilmore, this was her first time, and her also biggest time. It's actually not her first time being told that she sucks. It's not her first time. People try and say that it's her first time. It's not. She had a teacher who literally said, you need to drop this class. And it was the first time that Rory ever got told, oh, I should do this, and actually had to listen, because every other time that Rory is kind of told, you need to drop out of this class, or you need to do this, or you just have to take a step back here, she doesn't, she perseveres. But the last time that she tried to persevere, she realized that she actually just had to drop out of the class because it was too much for her and it was too heavy of a load, and she had to take a fucking break. So let's consider the fact that Mitchum Huntsberger is the next person that tells her that she doesn't have what it takes in the thing that she wants to do, and it's the biggest name in all of what she wants to do in this world, in Gilmore Girls, and he's a family friend. He's friends with her parents. He's super nice to them. He's a two-faced monster. She tries to drop out because she's just having a tough time, and her mother decides, actually, no, if you drop out, I'm never going to talk to you again. And on top of that, the only people who are listening to her are her grandparents, who are willing to just let her take a break, live in the pool house, have her own time. And Rory is able to regain that. Her regaining of her experience and her ability to want to go back to Yale and persevere is not because Jess came in and Jess said, why did you drop out of Yale? Jess wasn't there for the 3 years leading up to why Rory dropped out of Yale. Jess wasn't there for the 20 years leading up to why Rory dropped out of Yale. Jess thinks that he knows Rory, but he only knows the 16-year-old version of Rory, who's kind of trying to understand the world, but is also being told by her mother that her boyfriend is Mr. Perfect and her boyfriend is great. I mean, if you want to go with Jess, that's fine, go for it. Don't hurt Dean, though. If you hurt Dean, then you're a monster and a terrible person. And I don't know what I would do if I raised a monster and a terrible person. And I guess I'll still talk to you if you like Jess, but like, I just won't understand you anymore. Lorelai uses mean girl tactics on Rory. Sure, to her face, she's saying, I mean, yeah, if you want to do that, I guess. But she's also kind of going, if you want to do that, sure. I won't talk about you behind your back. I won't like ignore you because you did the wrong thing when I gave you two choices. I mean, sure, I gave you two choices, but one was the right choice. You know that. Secretly, deep down, you know that. That's Lorelai. I love Lorelai Gilmore, but also she is using all of her mother's tactics, and every time that she uses her mother, Emily Gilmore's tactics, you know what she's actually doing? She's becoming her mother, and people ignore it because Lorelai Gilmore is cooler than Emily, but people also ignore the fact that Emily is an abusive, narcissistic mother. So why am I surprised by all of this? Rory dropped out of Yale because Rory needed a minute. She needed to be able to reconnect to her passions and figure out if this was actually what she wanted to do, because she had been on this train for what she wanted to do for her entire life. And you know the episode where Lorelai goes, do I like Pop-Tarts because my mom hates Pop-Tarts, or do I like Pop-Tarts because I actually like Pop-Tarts? Rory Gilmore is going, do I like journalism and Yale because my mom likes Ivy Leagues and journalism and finds them prestigious enough for me to do, or do I like them because this is actually the thing I've always wanted to do? But people are willing, because Lorelai is an adult and not as annoying as Rory, to understand that Lorelai is an adult. And sometimes adults make mistakes, but because Rory is a 16-year-old to a 21-year-old in this show, if you bring up a year in the life, I will literally just block you. I do not give a shit. I will not ever give a shit. You've been warned. Rory, because she makes mistakes and is a teenager and is dumb, people act like she is the devil. And also, yeah, Rory cheats, but you know what? That doesn't make her the devil. That makes her a character in an early 2000s show. It makes her a character in an early 2000s show. And people act like cheating in media is the most heinous, awful thing that you can possibly do, but only for certain characters, because Paris does it and no one gives a shit, even though she's cheating on her boyfriend while it's his birthday and he came to visit her. But Rory's a villain, and if you say, well, at least Paris knows that she's evil, fuck you! Paris was told she was evil for her entire fucking life! Rory was told she was an angel who could do no wrong, so long as she stayed, I cannot emphasize this enough, on the train that was carved out brick by brick by her mother. Rail by rail, I don't know. And it's exhausting because people watch Yellow Jackets and say Shauna's the devil because Shauna cheated. They eat people. They eat people, and people still think Shauna's the biggest villain of all of them. People watch Sex and the City and go, I can't believe that Carrie cheated and hated Big's wife and tries to like mock the fact that she doesn't know they're there and they are. She called her friends about it. To mock the girl who stole her guy, who she technically knows that she didn't steal, but also is still hurt by the end of that entire relationship because it was messy and big and Carrie's biggest relationship at the time. And people just want to hate main characters who are girls. And it's exhausting and it's frustrating. And it's most frustrating for me when it's Rory Gilmore, because Rory Gilmore was not perfect. That's the concept of her entire character. We see her as being perfect, but we know she's not perfect. But people try so hard to make it seem like her lack of perfections, while still thinking that maybe she's a really big deal, is evil. And it's not. It's a person under the age of 25 being alive. And again, if you bring up A Year in the Life, I will literally just block you because I have never, ever, ever heard someone bring up A Year in the Life because they like it or actually believe any of it is canon, other than Rory cheating again, which is just Amy Sherman Palladino hating women and never wanting her female characters to succeed for longer than 20 minutes. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna go shopping now because it's Friday and it's nice out, so bye!